welcome back to Long Automotive. We're getting ready for a meet today. That meet is Alpine Volks Fair. It's coming up very soon, and I'll be honest with you guys, I have done literally zero work for this. It's in less than a month. I'm definitely only freaking out just a tiny bit about it, but I think we can make it happen. The car we're going to be bringing now is, you guessed it, it's that Rabbit back there in the corner. That thing hasn't run in about a year and a half. Unfortunately, it's been sitting with ethanol in the carburetors for that entire amount of time. So the first order of business is to clean the carbs out, and I'm going to pull them off and show you a couple of issues I've been having with them, as well as a couple other minor things like breather and some final ignition stuff. But hopefully once we get all that sorted out, it'll be good to go again, and we can get it down to Alpine Volks Fair successfully. Alright, now we got them off the car, we got them on the teardown table. Carburetors are very simple things, really. In all actuality, they are much simpler than fuel injection system. They're intimidating to some people, and I get that. I mean, anything you're not familiar with can be intimidating. But they're extremely reliable. You just have to know their intricacies. And one of those things is ethanol fuel. See, ethanol was not always in gasoline, to you young kids out there, which I'm not that old. Now most gasoline has about 10% ethanol. That's called E10. Used to, the stuff you just bought at the pump had 0% ethanol in it, and now you can even get E15 or 15% ethanol in some places. Now, something like this, I'd never run 15% ethanol in, but honestly, it runs E10 just fine. But you have to do a better job of storing cars than I did this one. And either run some sort of fuel stabilizer or drain your carburetors out when it's going to sit for a while. So this is just a plate that holds velocity stacks. We are going to go ahead and pull the needles out of the top. Keep in mind, you guys that have messed with motorcycle carburetors before, the screws on these things are Japanese industry standard screws, JIS for short. Whoops, not lose that. They're different from your like regular number 1, 2, 3 Phillips head screw, and if they are very tight and you try to use a Phillips head screw, or a Phillips head screwdriver rather, it'll strip them. So this is, I mean, this is just a cheap screwdriver, but it is a JIS screwdriver. I'm not sure if you can see these last two, both of them. Whoops, let's not lose parts out of the carburetors. Both of them have that green stuff. Remember the green color of the fuel? Both of these needles have that green residue on them. We're going to clean all that off. Because if any of this sticks while the carburetor is running, it's going to cause a running issue, be it a surge or a rough idle. It may even cause the carburetor to stumble and die when you come to a stoplight, something like that. Stuff flying everywhere. Do a better job of that than me. Alright, so we'll bring you in a little closer for the bowls here. These are Allen's. Hold on. Hold that thought. I gotta drain the fuel out of these things. Forgot about that. It's just an Allen. We'll drain it and we'll be back. Alright. Got the fuel drained. Now I've been through these carburetors once, and these screws here that I'm actually taking loose now, generally when you get them, they're Phillips, and because of the way these things corrode, they really like to strip. So I've switched these to Allen's. Really just hope that my O-rings are going to be good. I really don't want to have to buy a carburetor rebuild kit for these. Hey, you ready for the big unveil? Let's see what we got going on here. Number 4. Well, that one's green inside. Number 3. A little bit better. Number 2. Also green inside. Number 1 looks pretty good. And it looks like all these O-rings are good too, which is nice. Now, inside of these things, there's 2 main jets we're going to look at. That's going to be the main here, that's your main fuel circuit, and the slow jet here. So this car wouldn't start at all, so I'm expecting that these mains are completely clogged. Now I was fortunate enough I was able to borrow a set of jet cleaners. You can get these on Amazon, they're really cheap. It's literally a set of wires that you go through and put through the jet for the right size, as well as just flushing them out with carburetor cleaner. So just using a flathead screwdriver, I'm going to start pulling them out here. I will keep them in the same bore. They're not indexed or anything, but it's nice. That one's wide open. Yeah, see already this is an issue. I don't know if it's going to pick up on camera, but this thing, that slow jet, is completely clogged up, and that's going to prevent it from starting. Main's good. Man, these things stink. That slow jet's open. Another clean main. And a partial clog on that slow jet there. And number 4 slow jet as well is completely clogged up. Not great. Main's good as well. See, the mains have a much bigger hole in them, so it's a lot easier for them to stay clear. The body of the carburetor here looks pretty good. So that'll be number 1. That'll be number 2. 3, 4, and you can see up in here this is all bright aluminum steel, so I'm not worried about that. I'm just going to take the jet cleaner and poke in these open orifices, see if I can get carburetor cleaner to flow through all the air bleeds, and then whoop, I just leaked gas everywhere. Don't worry about that. You see in the bore the dark stuff there too. We're going to clean all that out. Nothing wild. The front here doesn't look awesome either. We'll clean all that out as well. And all those, they all look kind of crappy. So, onward. Alright, a couple days on since I tore those carburetors and cleaned them up for you guys, and I have successfully modified this intake here. Now, like I said before, what I ended up doing is putting a flange on the already existing runner, and put this in a lathe and cut a channel in that flange to receive the standard motorcycle boot. And that boot has a little rubber lip in there that meets up with this flange, and it matches what's on the carburetors over there. So this will be a lot harder, and it already is, to get off of the carburetor and the intake both with it just pulling, or be it from friction or vibration, NVH, whatever. So hopefully this solves in itself my carburetor falling off problem, which is a really lame problem. I still have to buy the little clamps for these. I don't have them yet. And I apologize in advance for not filming stuff like this. I don't have a TIG welder here yet, or a lathe. Really all I have is a little 110 MIG welder. And you guys would be very surprised actually if you saw what I did and did not have in this shop. There's a lot of tools I don't have that I really like, but I tend to prioritize buying car parts over tools, so I have to beg and borrow to do stuff like this. But anyways, it's done now, so we can put the carburetors back together and slap this stuff back on the engine. Just kidding. Off camera, I went ahead and primed the fuel system in the Rabbit, and what happened was nothing came out of the bowls, which is one of the symptoms before, but it did gush like an absolute geyser past one of the needles in the main jet. So what that tells me is that the little float valve that cuts the fuel on and off coming out of the bowl was not sealing. And you'll remember that I said all I needed to do was clean the main and the slow jets. Well, clearly I was wrong and overlooked that. Which, who could have guessed? Anyways, I've went ahead and ordered new valves for the float bowls on these things, as well as off camera. I went ahead and took everything out and cleaned the emulsion tubes, the idle pilot screw, all that stuff. So everything else should be okay. But I just want to show you. So this guy here is the old one. This guy right here. And you can see the kind of color it has to it. That's from the old fuel and ethanol sitting on it. And there's a itty bitty little screen that goes on here as well. This is the new one. Nice and bright brass. And I don't know if I can show you down in there, but there's debris in that bore, because I bought the cheapest one I could find on Amazon, not the $30 per carburetor OEM set. because I'm cheap. So we're going to deal with the cheap Chinese one with debris in the bore, and I will go in here and just clean that stuff up. And here's the little valve that seals it on the other side. So I tried to start it the first time, it just kind of coughed. It may want to run. It's also full of old gas, which isn't fantastic. So what I'm going to do first is just make sure that I set the distributor position correct. Because I think I know where number 1 is based on the mark, but it's best to double check. So I'm just going to spin it over the top dead center here. It's looking like it's going to be right. Yeah, I had that right. Okay. Distributor on this spins counterclockwise, so this way. 1, 3, 4, and 2, and coil. Let's try again. One on the bottom. On the bottom. Number 1. Number 3. Dude, I still got it wrong. Oh my god. Man, I'm an idiot. Don't let me work on your car. Half right. Can't count, apparently. I had 1 and... Which one was that? Had 1 and... No. I had 3 and 2 flipped. Alright, triple check. Number 2. Alright, now the firing order is correct. Amazingly. It ain't much, but it does run. This thing hadn't run in quite a while, and it has a manual choke, so I'm just going to let the choke warm up a little bit, pull it out of choke, and then it should be okay. it's got a muffler on it. Okay, well, a couple days on from setting the engine mounts in this car and getting it started for the first time since it's been sitting for a year. And what do we have to show for it? Well, not much. I'll show you. So here's where we are. Everything's back together now, as you can see. But still, I have a high-speed misfire on this car. And I have been troubleshooting every ignition component I could think of for the last 3 days on how to fix it. So you'll notice in here right off the bat, we got a new distributor. I have checked the plug wires, they're fine. We set up the timing accurately, that's good. I have tried 3 different ignition boxes and ignition modules, all those are good. Tried a coil, that's good. Even jumped this ground here from there back to the trunk where the battery now is. That didn't do anything. So I have on this car a wideband O2 sensor and gauge, so I can see what the air fuel ratio is. And I was just kind of hoping, since the car ran okay previously, that I didn't have to rejet the carburetors. Now, they were ridiculous rich before, but the car ran okay. I think what I did was, this last time, I found some stuff in the carburetor that was not cleaned properly last time, like the emulsion tubes and up under the seats where the needles go. And I cleaned all that stuff out this time, and I believe the carburetors are running even richer than they were last time. That's my theory anyways, and I'm sticking to it until I figure something else out. So what I'm going to do now is start drilling jets, and we're going to rejet these things. I started this with the intention of finishing this video, and I actually shot an outro for it like a week ago. But the car hasn't run right, so we're still here. Right now it is 10:30 in the morning on Saturday before we leave for Alpine Volks in Helen, Georgia. It's about a 6-hour drive from here. And it actually runs okay under cruise, but it won't take load, and I want to have fun with it in the mountains. So we're going to get going. Alright, a couple things off the jump. I'm starting with this tuning kit for these carburetors from Factory Pro. I was kind of hoping I could buy this and it would have fat enough jets in it where I wouldn't have to drill any, and then I could just end up with like a master set of jets. That's not the case. It does have a set of adjustable needles in here, which I may or may not try, but it's got like 4 pilot jets, 4 main jets, all of them for fine tuning modified motorcycles with these carburetors. Turns out I need more fuel than that. Who would have thought? So, what I have in there right now are 180s. That's them. I can double check that size. It is 1.8 millimeters with a little 1.8 millimeter drill bit. So it fits in there nice and snug, and that tells me roughly the size. Now the intention of this after you drill these jets is that you should go and buy a set of masters that aren't drilled, that are just made, well, that are made professionally to the sizes that you need. So this is kind of a starting point. It may end up being semi-permanent in this car. We'll see how it runs. Because that's just kind of how I am. I'm holding them in a 5C collet holder that I borrowed, not mine. And I am drilling them with a hand drill because I don't have a drill press here yet. So, should have your work area cleaner than mine. I already did this one. Pull it out, set it to the side. Simple as that. Drilled. Do all four. And you want to just, I can't pick it up on camera probably, but you want to just look in there and make sure it's not leaving a burr too. Oh, and I didn't mention, I'm backing them back down. So a stock jet on these mains is a 130. I had a 180 in there based on some knowledge on VW Vortex. It didn't work for me. So I am backing it down to a 155 is what I'm drilling to now. We'll start there. Too big, too small, don't know. But when you're doing these things, you want to start with the mains. The mains affect your wide open throttle fueling, as well as they affect every other jet in the circuits of the carburetor. So start with the mains, we'll get it running right, wide open throttle, and then we can back down through the pilot jet, through the idle screw mixture and all that stuff, and get those as right as we can. Now, we're not able to remove the emulsion tubes in this carburetor, so they're going to stay how they are. I believe they're pressed in, so I'm not going to mess with those. Fingers crossed and hope this works good enough. Now with the Factory Pro kit, they send this little instruction sheet on how to tune these things. I'm not a wizard, and you know, a lot of this stuff is still a mystery to me as well. So one of the checkpoints on here is float height for starters. It says to start with a 9.5 millimeter float height, I believe. So I have a float gauge here, and we're just going to double check. I know they're all the same to each other. They were at least, but I don't know what they are currently. So I'm going to set this up and just check them all and make sure they're okay. Certainly leaner than it was. That's a good sign. It fired a little bit except choke. We'll let it warm up for just a sec, and if it idles okay, I'll probably take it for a drive. Alright, back once again. I ended up with a 145 main jet in this thing right now, as well as tightened up the idle pilot screws to 2.5 turns from the stop. That helped out a lot, but it still has what feels like a slight miss at wide open throttle. And I put them back in, but pulled all the plugs out, and number 4 plug is pretty rich compared to the rest of them. So what I'm going to do is take the air filter plate off, and I'm going to try and sync these things with this Edelbrock Unisync tool. This is similar to a vacuum gauge, except it has a float in it. As a vacuum gauge, it uses like a manometer. So I've got number 3 and 4 here pretty close. About there, second line on both. But 1 and 2, like, barely make the gauge move. So what I got to do now is shut it off, and I'm adjust this screw here to try and balance them. I may have went the wrong way. That's looking better. That's looking a lot better. Now 1 and 2 are out. That's pretty good. Pretty good. You're not going to get it perfect with this. I really need the 4-tube manometer, but I don't have one right now, so we're doing it this way. So just got back home, missed the rain shower in the Rabbit, took it out for about an hour drive, and the car did great. It's just fine to make the trip to Helen now, but I still need to do some carburetor tuning to get it perfect, especially on like the top end. It's still breaking up a little bit, and I'm not sure why, because the gauge is reading like 12, 5, 13 flat, which is a little bit rich, but it should run clean there. So I'm going to continue to do that. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment down below what you think about the Rabbit, what you want to see us do with it in the future. I'd really like to take this up to the mountains and do some curvy road footage, as well as like a walk around video like I've done with some other things. And we'll see you in the next episode.